Let's go. Wait. See, people be saying they're ready when I'm ready. You ready? Everybody say, "Ooh." All right, you had a question.
Yes. The statement was made having spiritual equilibrium will allow you to correctly take correction. The question is, how do we know we have spiritual equilibrium?
I think it's something you have to grow into. And I think it's your past that will measure your present, that will identify your future. Your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts on that particular that equilibrium needs to have that equality. Well, again, when you're talking about spiritual things, if you're talking about being that before God, then we need to raise that to be above all other matters
Right,
because we want to be in that context. We want to be in that place with God.
right. Okay. Want to welcome all of you. Thank you again for joining us. We're here at I Am. We're the House of Reconciliation. Want to take this opportunity to welcome you into the month of September. It is the first Sunday. I have with me clinical psychiatrist Ken Garner from Detroit, Michigan. Everybody give him a hand. This is a gentleman that I shared with you
Thank you.
uh,
Thank you.
that he had shared a lot of information with me, topics of bodies in the basement, topics of, oh, guys, so many things that he has shared with me that I've shared with you all. And so today he's here. He's going to be with us Sunday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So I want to pick his mind. But so a couple of things I want to share is we're in the month of September, the number 9. And I said this on last Sunday. What have you done with your seed? Because in the month of August, if you look at it, it's the number 8, new day, new beginning. So now, have you planted your seed? And this is both body, mind, and spirit. We look at Proverbs 11, I think it's 11 and 1, that talks about a false balance is an abomination before God. And so, several things that I always say, welcome to another opportunity to gain and advance our lives in successful living. And we went back to the church anthem, which says, I am the seed. And many times people are stuck on having a seed or a gift or a talent, but they never take the opportunity to be developed. And oftentimes, to be developed, there has to be room for new things, new beginnings. So then the producer said, let's use don't gamble with your future. But I put a couple caveats to it. Don't gamble with your inheritance. There's something that your family, there's something that is historically in you that you don't know. And many people try to shut the doors on their past. They try to shut the doors on their pain. They try to shut the doors on their hurt. And many times we have missed the lesson in the pain. And so then we become repeat offenders because now we talked about the other day the ignorance of pain. And so when we understand the ignorance of pain, this comes out of Proverbs, I think it's 1 and 5. Do we have that?
Yes.
Will you read it, please?
Proverbs 1 and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Let the wise listen and add to their learning, and let the discerning get guidance.
So what we have to do, if we will not hear, then we refuse to listen. If we refuse to listen, then we can't learn. If we can't learn, we cannot adjust, neither can we adapt, and neither can we apply. So I'm happily favored to have Ken, who's a clinical psychologist, to sit in with us to talk about some of the things we have to do and identify from our past and our present. So when I say don't gamble with your inheritance, don't gamble with your future, and neither your children's future. And I always use this platform, we can't. We can't be everything to everybody and nothing to ourselves. I'll give you this. We have a life to live that no one else can live for you. So several people had asked a couple things about this, that, and the other. And so I came to this conclusion. Take your life serious, not your problems. So in the month of September, we're going to deal with this concept, changing our destiny. And so when you and I begin to look and realize that there is a greater value in you than what you're experiencing, there's a greater value in you than where you come from. We're more focused on being in a situation than finding a way to resolve the situation. So the subject today is stuck, stuck, stuck. Why? So one of the things I wrote down was creating new behaviors. And so I'm going to, and this comes from Luke 22 and 31, where the Lord said to said to Simon, 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 Satan has asked, and this is in the NIV version, to sift you like wheat. So what I wanted Ken to do is to share with us some of the things that we have experienced that are still causing us to stumble. Like, why would we not try to balance our life? We want better pay, but we won't get a better education. Okay, we it's almost like we want things that we don't pay the price. Comment, my brother.
First of all, thank you for having me, Pastor. We certainly appreciate my wife and I for you inviting us down.
So you can tell he go to church. Carolina. We don't even talk about church. We're just trying to say we skip all that. Let's get to the meat.
All right.
Let's get to the meat.
All right. Well, okay. All right. Well, a lot of times we as individuals we try to forget our past, but that's impossible to forget your past. Your past is sealed in you, and it has taken its toll, as you would say, whether good or bad, upon you. So if you have these things, it becomes, how do I learn how to deal with where I come from in order to get to where I'm going? You cannot just relinquish where I come from to try to get to where I am going. We have to have a style of adopting and embracing our past. And a lot of times, the things that we remember most from our past are the things that are hurtful. And because of those hurtful things, they keep us from moving forward. But
and
however,
my thought, not to cut you off, how do we take that hurt and that pain and apply it to healing, and it becomes motivation? How do we have to accept it, or do we just ignore it? How do we, because a lot of people, when I say stuck, and we've dealt with this before, they want to close the door. It's like you told me about bodies in the basement and how they show up. Right. And so I'm saying, if we don't address it and become honest with it, I've even said to people, and you can tell me whether I was right or wrong, sometime if you've lost a person and you're still dealing with a battle within you that you had with a person, sometimes you have to go to the grave and just get it out. You have to go back to that moment with that conversation and get it out. And I think many of the audiences, and talking to the producer with Jeff Akers Films, and they were saying that a lot of people are always watching when I talk about being stuck. But the whole goal is, what are the steps that we need to acknowledge as a person instead of denying it? And I'll give you this as a feeder. The question was asked, and I said, we can't continue to fake it till we make it. So how then, I guess the question would be, do we address our pain that we want to ignore and forget?
No, we have to address our pain.
Okay.
We can't ignore the pain of life. There are things, as you were speaking of, you still talking about the bodies in the basement. Well, let's explain what that means. That is what is called an introject. That is where an individual has given some instructions, say by a higher authority, say a parent, and they internalize that and they keep it within themselves. So then it becomes instructional for them. And sometimes the things that are put inside of us are things that prohibit us from going forward. So again, when you're talking about the bodies in the basement, what that simply means is that thing springs up. It comes upstairs every once in a while, and it takes its toll on you. So, for instance, if you have something very painful in your life that happened to you as a child, all right, something that was very traumatic, say like you have, like my house was burning down, all right. Now I see my house burning down. I see my parents crying, and I see it's very disturbing for them. Now, because no one came to me and said, hey, son, it's going to be okay, and they try to embrace you and to raise you through that traumatic experience, what happens is we internalize that traumatic experience. And what that is that the body, the mind, and your emotions remember that experience. So then when you grow up, what happens is, because I haven't adopted that particular situation or adapted to that particular situation, that when someone upsets me, that's that interject that comes up out of the basement, where I become argumentative, I become pushing back, I become disturbed by that, because the body works like this. The mind and the emotions work like this. It works in a general content.
Okay.
Now, I believe you heard of, if it walks like a duck, if it quacks like a duck, what is it?
It's a duck.
It's a duck, right? Well, the mentality doesn't work that way. It's more of a shotgun effect. Okay, so what it does is it spreads it all across your life. And when it spreads it all across your life, it becomes this for your system: bird.
Okay.
So anything that looks like a bird, or feels like a bird, or tastes like a bird, or smells like a bird, I'm going to react from that bird sense that I learned when my house was burning down. Okay. I'm going to automatically act out. Okay. I'm going to automatically become argumentative.
Okay.
So again, what is that? That's like going out to the desert.
Okay.
And you have to move some sand. And
Okay.
you have to get down to the city. And once you get into the city, you begin to understand, where did I come from? Why do I respond like this? And then sometimes through leadership, you can find out that, well, hey, this particular thing, your house burning down, caused you to react, and you never overcame that. Now that I have information, I change. So information is important.
Okay, information is important, but I can't live in denial.
Cannot live in denial, no.
And I can't tune it out.
You cannot tune it out.
So I'm stuck.
You are stuck.
I'm stuck until I can address that I'm acting out because of something that no longer exists.
Exactly.
In my life.
It's called the unconscious.
Okay, come on.
The unconscious is stronger than your conscience.
The unconscious is stronger than your conscious. Right. Okay, tell us a little bit about that.
All right. Can you ride a bicycle?
Yes.
If I bought a bicycle and then I said, Pastor, ride the bicycle, can you ride the bicycle?
Yes.
Do you have to put any thought into it?
Yes. Because I tried that the other day and it didn't work out too well. I couldn't.
All right, I better use somebody else.
No, you're right. You're right.
There's not much conscious thought into it.
Okay.
You see?
Okay.
Because it's already in the unconscious.
It's already in the unconscious.
So since it's there, you get on the bike, you may have to adjust yourself a little bit, but after a while, you just keep on down the road on the bicycle. So the unconscious is stronger. When we leave here today, we'll be talking in the car. You know, you might get a phone call, you might be listening to the radio, but somehow you end up in your driveway.
Okay.
Do you think about where you're going? No, you just go. So the unconscious is stronger than your conscience.
Wow.
And because of that, it has superiority. And that's where it's laying at. So once I begin to embrace what's in my unconscious, once someone brings it up, once someone helps me to identify with it, I begin consciously to gain control over that situation. Because what happens is when I'm in that situation, the next time I'll say, wait a minute, I feel that bird.
Okay.
I feel that sense of that bird. And I say, wait a minute, that's not what's going on. That's in my past. That's already been completed. I don't no longer have to respond like that. So what is unconscious, as you're saying, becomes conscious.
So now here's the thing, and all that sounds good, but here's what I find when I'm trying to deal with people. Truth and change. And the word that people use before is, Now, I have an issue with it, but they call it constructive criticism. I'm stuck on if it's the truth and it will make you better and it will take you to a new level in your life. It's almost like we're in pain, but we fight our pain and it doesn't change our life. So we spend years hiding. This is why I wrote, truth and change creates an uncomfortable time. So when you talk about that bird, and let's say you tell me, hey, you're going to need to do this and shift and do this, why am I so defensive with it?
Because you have to be led to the water. If I make the revelation for you, you're not going to accept it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? I might see it,
Mm-hmm.
but if you don't see it, it don't make any difference. It's not going to make any difference. I have to bring you to the city and let you do the digging. I'm not going to do the digging.
Yeah, we talked about, yeah, okay.
Right. You got it. You have to do the digging. I can't do the digging.
So what tools for a person who's stuck that we take to the desert, what tools can a person use? Because if not, nothing's going to change.
That's why a lot of programs, we build programs to help individuals. But what we have neglected is every individual is different. Look at your children. Different.
Yeah, completely.
You have to do things different in order for them to respond.
Right.
Right? So since you have to do things different for your children to respond, it's the same way. So then it's about taking them out to the desert. You may again see what's going on in their life and how they have come about. But if they don't see it,
Mm-hmm.
they're not going to change. You have to help them do the digging.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
I have to help you. You got to bring the tools. So whatever tools that they have is the tools that we're going to use.
But they got to want it. Do they want it before they see it, or do they see it before they want it? Because some people literally refuse to go to the desert. If it will make you better, why would you fight it?
Listen.
Am I still dramatized in the room?
Listen. Let me say this. You said truth.
Bible says
Everybody can't handle the truth. That's the problem. Because if I have to handle the truth, I have to embrace that which is true.
so. We want to avoid the mirror, is what you're saying.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The truth, and that's very good. Thank you for that. See, what we have a habit of doing is looking at it externally. I want to look at you, and I want to. Correct. So I have the real truth is inside of me. The real truth, these are just the things that happen because of the way that I am and because of what I do.
So do they shape you and make you become that?
Well, there's a lot of things that shape you and make you.
Okay.
See, let's move over there. Behavior.
Oh, no, not behavior. Oh, no, we don't want behavior. Erase that off the tape. We don't want behavior. Because most people think nothing is wrong with their behavior.
No, behavior is learned.
We just had a conversation off camera when I asked you, because they went to see someone. The kid hadn't bathed in how many days? See, nobody will see y'all 3 days. But then the parents don't want any kind of chastisement or correction or guidance. And so I asked you, because you spent 34 years on the police force. So I'm like, then who is that child going to listen to? So then I'm asking you the question. Sometimes I think we don't know that we have a ill, dysfunctional behavior because our environment have shaped us. And you're talking about truth. How can, and I've said this before, and you told me this, I think this is the key word. Behavior is learned.
Correct.
So if behavior is learned, and my parents or my heroes, I don't care what you see as a child, whatever your parent does, you see it as right, because knowledge comes later after behavior is formed. Am I correct?
That is correct. And a clear example of that is that, say that my mother and father fights and they beat on each other. All right? But yet they never leave each other. They stay together because they say you have to stay together no matter what.
But where we come from, that's the way they said it.
Okay? So what does that become for the child? I see this fighting, even though it horrifies me as a child and it harms me as a child, it becomes love to me. Because they stayed together. So they love each other. So now I have internalized, adopted this form of love that is abnormal. And then I take it out into a world of a person who had a normal childhood, and I try to bring in my abnormal. But I see it as normal.
So for some people, confusion and drama
are normal. It becomes normal. So it's normalized to me, even though it's...
So that's when you arrested me, and I'd be like, man, don't be touching me, man. I ain't done nothing.
My abnormal has been normal.
And then we standing around somewhere with a camera talking about, yeah, y'all leave him alone. Leave him alone. He ain't done nothing. And I couldn't figure that out. Now I understand because of the chaos and the confusion. That's my normal.
Right. That's normal for me.
So now when I try to interact with other people,
I become the abnormal.
Oh, man. I'm going to get my moped and just go home. Are you serious? So I want to operate in a 10-cylinder environment. But yet, I think, because I try to tell parents, you are the greatest example and hero to your kids. You can be nothing in society. But when you have a son, you have a daughter, they think everything that you do is right.
But you're talking about after the child is born.
Okay.
But it all starts when the mother's impregnated.
That's true.
Because the brain is forming. So what's coming in from the environment is coming through the system and shapes the child's behavior, begins to start to shape the child's behavior.
So it can be conceived one way, but based on the environment that it's in, it can reshape the child and rewire the child before it ever...
Well, not exactly rewire, but wire the child.
Okay.
Okay. So the child is receiving that which is in the mom's environment.
Okay.
And so then it begins to set up that system, that response system. Okay. And when it begins to set up that response system, the child may come out and be high strung on his emotions, you see. Or it may not have any emotions at all because we're all about survival. We all know that. We're all about survival. So the system learns how to shut down. You ever seen a person without emotions? That's because they learned how to shut down. Okay. In order to survive, I have to shut down. That's just like police officers. What happened with police officers? They keep going to these crime scenes after crime scenes after crime scenes after crime scenes. And they keep seeing the horrors of man. So then they said that we become professional and we begin to not respond anymore to what we're seeing. However, that's just like cancer. You take it home with you and you stop responding to your wife. You stop responding to your children also because you have learned how to shut down. Anything that comes towards you, bird,
okay.
I respond the same way. So you want to talk about something that's very intense. I shut you out. Yeah, I heard you. Okay, yeah, because I know how to turn off, right? So I begin to act like that, not knowing that I'm like that.
So they don't see themselves.
They don't see themselves. And again, it takes a person to take them out to the desert and make them do the work to show them where you are. If I can't see where I am, I cannot embrace the truth.
Well, the desert is truth.
The desert, no, the city is the truth.
The city is
the desert is just the field. We got to dig in.
So we got to dig. Okay. Okay.
Well, not exactly in that context. What it does, it shapes more of your behavior and how you're going to respond behaviorally. You see, how you're going to act when you come out. Not necessarily. It's a little bit more general than that. What happens is that you will have emotions, but you will not know how to regulate those emotions. And it depends on how you are wired in those emotions. Now, when you come out of the womb, the mother and father must begin to train you, you know, and that's even consistent with what the Bible says. You train up a child in the way it should go, and when it's old, it shall not depart, right? So then they have to start training you. Otherwise, you become what is known as dysregulated emotions. So now you become out of control. You become chaos. Not so much as tired, okay? No, it's not so much as tired. What it's more about is your nervous system. Your main nervous system is being set up. So it's like a response system. So if the mother, say, is calm and reflective about what's happening in her world, the chances of the child coming out being calm and reflective are increased. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes. Well, shut down, again, if you're talking about emotions, my emotions shut down because I'm trying to survive. All right. So my emotions keep me in a response system where I'm able to respond to the world appropriately and respond to others appropriately. But if it becomes overwhelmed, you ever been in a house and you go down to the fuse box and you pull a switch and it shuts off? Take it like that. When I become overwhelmed, shut off, shut down. That becomes the way that I have learned how to respond. So then, therefore, I cannot connect with anyone. So I do that unconsciously, right? Because I've been wired that way. I've been taught that way. I've learned to behave that way. Behavior is learned, right? So that's the way that I now treat my situations. But it takes a person to see that you're responding in that manner to be able to say, I understand. But do you understand? If I tell you what it is, it doesn't necessarily help you. There has to be what is called a ha-ha moment for you. You have to discover. That's why I'm saying the best analogy is taking you out to a desert and we just having conversations. What was it like? What was the first time that you experienced, where you just didn't feel like doing anything? When was the first time that you just shut down? And then you'll say, well, when I was 12 years old, my house burned down and my mom and them was crying. So that's a beginning point. So now we have moved some sand and we found a city that me and you can work inside of to begin to get you to the place where you understand the effects of what happened to you. Does that make sense? And then when you be able to embrace those effects, you start to change. I don't change you. You change because it's your aha moment. You say, that's it. And then once you do that, there's steps that come along with it. Knowledge. That's the first thing. Then after knowledge, understanding. Right? Now I understand where I came from and how I am and what happened to me. Now, because I have understanding, the next step is wisdom. Which means wisdom means behaviorally, I begin to apply that which I have knowledge and I now understand. Now, the next step is character. I no longer act how I act because my character is changing. Now, guess what? Destiny. I don't go that way no more. I go this way. Because now I know where I came from, and now I know where I'm going.
Any other questions? Now nobody want to talk now. That was good? Okay. All right. So then you said, so I guess my question to help some of the audience, how do we get people to see that they need to go to the desert? In the Bible, they call it the upper room. But how? And I know I'm challenging your because they want it. You want it, the audience. You guys send great numbers when I talk about stuck for some reason. And he talks about emotions. And you know I'm always saying use your intellect and intelligence. So that's why you need a counterbalance. And so I want, because if you care and you love people, and that's what we're called to do as leaders, as he is a clinical psychologist, is to help people get better. I don't know, sir, how we get better if we want to accept that we need change. Because instead of me changing, see, to change, I have to script down. We're in a moment, I become extra, and I do more to cover up. So it goes back to the comment that someone had given from the audience, and when I said, we can't no longer fake it till we make it, because we'll never know when it's real. Your thoughts?
Well, again, what you're talking about is what is called intervention. You've heard of those, right? Okay. So if you have, for instance, a child that's on drugs, no matter how much you try to get that child off of drugs until they're ready to change, the change just doesn't come.
Okay.
Right? So in that state of mind, intervention, what you're talking about, is very difficult.
Okay.
There are methods in which you can bring in the family members, right? You got this one person that you want to change in your family. When you bring in the family members and begin to help them and instruct them, then that person that's outside begins to see that change and want to be part of the change. And that's a way of drawing them in through interventions.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Gotcha.
So you bring, sometimes you can't start with the individual. Sometimes you have to start with the family.
Start with the village. Okay.
Right. You start with them. Now, the family can't go home and just start pounding on the person, because that's not going to work either.
Okay.
What they have to do is just be a representative of change.
Okay.
And if they're a representative of change, automatically, because that's my brother in most cases, will say he wants to change too.
Okay.
And that's a way of doing an intervention for a person who's very resistant towards change.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. That's okay. That's what we're here for.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. Oh, I almost speaking Creole. I'm sorry. Come see. No, if you have people in your family that going through something, and then you kept telling them, listen, you need to stop doing what you're doing. Yes, I'm gonna stop. But you gotta look at where God brought you from. God bring you from a long way you could have died. But now you're doing other things. So now I keep talking, keep saying, okay, don't do that, don't do this. So me and my friend girl, we was talking the other day. She was like, God gonna bring him out, blah, blah, blah. I said, you know what? Sometimes it takes somebody else to talk to that person. We as a family member, we can tell them all day and all night for them to change. They're not gonna do it. That one stranger can come and say, I else thing that you're doing?
I guess the thought would be, and I'm going to give it to you, self-inflicted pain. Now,
What-
notice the crazy question. Why do we do that?
It's a way of acting out. It's anger in those situations is more appropriate
Okay.
than you hurt me.
Okay. So my response
If
is,
if I have to admit you hurt me for whatever reason, it's subscribed to the person as weakness.
okay.
So it's easier for me to act out in anger because now I feel that I get to hurt you back. Right? I get to hurt you back. And then as to what you said 4 times this word: tell, 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 tell. That's the problem. You can't tell them anything because what you may be triggering for them is that you told them to do something in their life that they rejected a long time ago. And because of that earlier rejection, it has set up again the response system. So you trying to tell me, so I'm going to keep rejecting you telling me anything. So if I stop telling you what to do and check to see how you're doing, you may believe it's your idea. And because it's your idea, you're out in the desert. You've moved some sand. You're looking for the city. Remember, I lead. So I got to figure out different ways to lead. So if you have a situation where you tell might be the problem. You know? Well, that's a behavioral problem or a behavioral difficulty. What happens with children is that they need instructions, but every child needs a different set of instructions. I can point my finger at you and say, you better have your chores done when I get home, and you'll do them. And then I may point my finger at your brother and say, you better have your chores done when I get home, and he won't do them. Why is that? Exactly. I have to understand history. I have to understand that child's way of doing things. I can't hammer this one. I can't hammer this one. I can be sad with this one. I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't. You know, son, you're really hurting me. This is really, what you're doing is just hurting me. And I don't know, I've been a good dad to you. I don't know why you want to keep hurting me. Then he may respond because I don't want to hurt dad. I don't want to hurt mom. So it's about, again, being able to look at that child and see, how do I give this child instructions? Everybody ain't the same. That's the problem. Stop throwing everybody in the same box. They ain't going to respond.
So, like how some people are audible learners and some people are visual learners, like that.
And that's the problem with the school. Because we teach everyone from a visual, spatial, or specifically a spatial, and everybody don't respond. Some children are visual, that they learn by pictures, by stories. So they have the same intellect, but because the intellect that's teaching you intellect disregards your intellect, begins to believe that your intellect is deficient. It's not. You have a different style of learning. So to be an instructor, I have to understand how you learn. And once I understand how you learn, then you begin to grow. Here's a good saying. Denzel Washington in the movie Philadelphia Tom Hanks, a very prominent lawyer, came in and started explaining things off the chart. Denzel rides back in his chair and he says, you know what? Explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. In other words, you got to get it. You got to change your instructions so that I can receive it. It's not that I'm deficient. It's just that my style of learning is different from your style of learning.
God bless you. We will pick this up in Greenwood. Yeah, that's why I told him. I told you, I said, no, he's good.